there is someone out there searching for your community. You just need to raise the visibility so they can find you. And it's really about, owning the size of your community, whether you are large or small, and then leaning into those unique lifestyle factors to make you stand out from the competition.
That's the voice of Samiria Palmer, Account Director at Development Counselors International, or as most of us know it, DCI. Samiria shares about where to begin if you've been charged with marketing your community. She'll highlight how you're not alone wearing your place marketer hat. DMOs, EDOs, chambers, and even other organizations in your community can all play a role in the narrative. Keep listening for all the place marketing insights. I'm Amanda Ellis, back with another episode of Inside America's Best Cities, a podcast for chamber, economic development, and talent attraction professionals. To learn more about this podcast, visit livabilitymedia.com. And with that, let's jump in. Welcome, Samiria. So glad you could do an interview with us today. Thanks so much for taking the time.
Yes, definitely. Thank you so much for having me. And on behalf of the agency, we're really excited about the opportunity to speak to you today.
I know that many of our listeners are at least a little bit familiar with DCI, but could you briefly walk us through what you all do and how that's evolved over time?
Yes. So DCI is a place marketing and public relations agency where we specialize in economic development, talent attraction, and tourism marketing. The agency was founded by Ted Levine in 1960 to help cities, states, and countries drive business investments to their communities. This really helps to provide job opportunities to residents so they can have, an amazing quality of life. And of course, we know that when it comes to the vibrancy of a community, it truly is embedded in their residents, and they having a better quality of life, they're able to pour back into the community. With that, I would say from the very beginning, we've been a purpose-driven agency that aims to elevate the lives of the people living and working in our client communities. And after 62 years of specializing in economic development and tourism marketing, DCI launched a third practice area in 2022 called Talent Attraction. So officially designating talent as a practice area was the result of DCI seeing a high demand from communities wanting to grab up the great talent that were leaving major cities on the coast during the height of the pandemic because they were in search of a better quality of life. Where I come into play as the agency's lead lifestyle publicist, I really sit at the intersection of the three areas: economic development, talent attraction, and tourism, where I work closely with our client communities to identify those compelling stories to take to national media like livability.com in order to raise our client community's visibility.
Yes, that intersection area I feel like is really growing too, of like common priorities of those types of organizations, which I think is interesting.
Yes.
We did an industry survey earlier this year, and we're seeing that some of these organizations that have traditionally been like, nope, tourism's outside of our wheelhouse, are looking more at what those tie-ins might be and kind of what that crossover is, which I think is interesting. Not that there's not still separate work for those, different types of groups, but that they're seeing some common priority areas. And I know that you, I think, have really worked on both sides. Like you used to work more specifically with destination marketing clients, correct? And then now I've taken on more of the economic development side as well.
Correct, exactly. And I think that's why this space, this intersection is so fascinating, because you have the destination marketing organizations, again, with my tourism background, working with these types of organizations where they do a phenomenal job speaking to why their community is such a great place to have fun in and be able to visit, have those types of lifestyle experiences. And they know how to speak directly to the consumer in that way. Whereas the economic development organizations in the chambers, they do a fantastic job at being able to speak to that business community in order to attract business investment. And so you have these two groups that are doing place marketing in two different ways, speaking to two different audiences. And then talent attraction fits perfectly in the middle, where for the talent, they need the jobs. And so they need to have that information coming out of the economic development organizations and the chambers of like, what are the business opportunities? What are the job opportunities there. But again, they also need to like where they live and more so love where they live. And so the destination marketing organizations can help fuel that information and speak to it. And so at DCI, again, with our talent attraction practice area, we really serve as like that middle person to help bring those two local organizations, put their expertise together in order to do place marketing in a more seamless and productive and a way that can really help the local community overall from that perspective.
Yeah, you make a great point about their strengths with the different types of messaging and how like being able to tie that together could be a really good thing. And we talk about that a lot too. Like, yes, jobs, obviously that's an important part of our lives. A lot of times it's what gets us interested in an area initially, but also like you're not going to go somewhere that doesn't sound like somewhere you would like living.
Right, right.
For someone in the economic development or chamber industry charged with marketing their place, so, some of those folks have access to a lot of outside expertise like you all, some may not, some have extensive marketing experience and some don't. So lots of different people who are in that position. So what advice would you give them if they were someone who did not have access to a whole lot of outside support on where they should start with thinking about marketing their place?
That's a really good question. Start with getting to really know your community and the locals that are making it a vibrant place. Like I mentioned earlier, the locals really make up the community. And again, I find that a lot of economic development organizations and chambers do a really great job at speaking to their business and industrial assets to try to attract that type of investment, but they don't always know what's happening in that lifestyle space. So, like, who is that rising chef in your community that's starting to create a buzz and attracting people to your town to try out the local food scene? Or who is that community organizer that's hosting fun and unique events that captures the culture of the city? So, it's these local people that make up the fabric of the community. And when a person is trying to decide on whether to take a job in one city over the other, it's these types of unique lifestyle experiences that help drive that decision making process. And this is again where that collaboration with your local DMO can be very resourceful.
Hmm.
I would also say that I highly recommend staying on top of industry trends. Again, for us at least, research is very rooted in everything that we do. So, in order to make informed decisions, it's important to know the data. And so, I know Livability, you guys have some great research studies that people can access and educate themselves on what the livability space is like. And then, even at DCI, we have a great study that we release annually called Talent Wars. We'll be releasing our seventh edition this summer, but essentially we survey working age people across the U.S. who recently relocated to learn more about what persuaded them to move, and then we use this data to then help our clients better understand how to attract and retain talent. And so Talent Wars is available on our website. It's free to download, and I think that being able to leverage these types of resource studies, whether they're free or they're affordable, it can really help those that they do have limited budgets. You can use that as a resource to help guide your marketing and PR strategy.
What are some places you would recommend looking to as great examples of place marketing? Some of your favorites?
I know everyone's eyes are on the state of Florida. They have been doing such a great job attracting talent. Recently, they launched a new talent attraction website. Of course, we all know that Florida is a great place to visit, but the state really wanted to also speak to their available jobs and why it's a great place to live. So they launched this campaign called Wonderful. It's a play on the word wonderful, like, as you hear it, but the U is removed to play up on the state's FL abbreviation.
Oh, that's funny.
Yes, yes. I think with talent attraction, there's so much creativity that can come out of these campaigns, and this is a great example of one. But the Wonderful campaign site, it really asks people to imagine what their life could be like in Florida. And so the branding is meaningful, colorful, joyful. So it really plays up on that full suffix of these words, which also means that you can have full life in Florida. But the new website offers robust plus information on jobs, cost of living, and it leverages content from Visit Florida to talk about lifestyle experiences. This campaign Insight was launched by utilities company Florida Power and Light. Some people may not necessarily think, why is a utilities company getting involved with talent attraction? But they power up the state for both residents and businesses. So attracting people to move to Florida is also a priority for them. So this is a great example of how economic development and tourism counterparts can, really come together to launch talent attraction efforts. And again, for those EDOs that are working with a limited budget, being able to establish those collaborative relationships with utility companies or major employers in your community can be helpful so that you guys can come together to fund campaigns like this. And I definitely think that talent attraction shouldn't be on just one individual organization. I think it's a group effort.
Yes. Thinking about that same group of people that we've been referencing, if they can only get outside support on one or two specific aspects of their marketing, what would you say it should be? Like, what are the hardest components to DIY if you're not really an expert? Like, is it media relations? Is it digital advertising? Any thoughts there?
It's tough to be able to, if you don't have the expertise to build your own website, you
Yeah.
might want to outsource that. And so I would say something that if they have budget and they're looking for that outside support, you may want to go in that direction and investing in developing your brand identity and like a talent attraction website should probably be your first priority, because even if there's not additional budget to hire, an agency for public relations or advertisement, at least the organization's internal marketing and or PR officer can leverage their own platforms in various ways across physical and digital marketing material. At DCI, we tend to use a house as an analogy to speak to the importance of having a strong digital assets like a website and social media pages. And having a dedicated talent attraction website serves as like the front door to your community. What does it have to offer? So you can direct people to this site so they can learn more about the uniqueness of your community, the available job opportunities, the quality of life, the cost of living, and so much more. And so the site really serves as a one-stop shop for talent to receive all of this information. Because it's where else will they be able to get it?
Yeah.
Take the hassle out of that search process in order to help talent make
Yeah.
a decision quicker.
Yeah, that makes sense. So starting there and then kind of seeing like where you want to go next and what you already know about and what you don't. But the first step being like getting that really solid presence in place.
Yes, yes.
So we talked a bit about paying attention to trends in terms of what talent are thinking about when it comes to relocating. What about marketing trends in general and kind of in this space? What are some new ones people in our industry should be paying more attention to maybe than they are?
Again, I would have to go back to the launching a talent attraction website. I think that they're similar to how destination marketing organizations, they have their own tourism board related website that gives you the whole spiel on what makes that place a great place to visit, what you can do there, things of that nature. Having that type of feature for your talent attraction efforts will also be useful. And on those websites, I would say we're seeing more communities be able to feature certain helpful tools like job boards or cost of living calculators, neighborhood personality quizzes, information on how to reskill or upskill and so forth. And so once you have those websites, pairing it with a campaign like the Florida's Wonderful campaign, I think in terms of new marketing trends works really well. Also, I would say over the past few years, we've also seen that being able to tap into influencers and content creators to
Hmm.
leverage that live and work messaging has been really helpful to get right in front of your audience. And so
Yeah.
being able to leverage digital influencers, that's I would say has traditionally been more in like the wheelhouse of like tourism boards, but we've been seeing more EDOs and chambers use that for their talent efforts as well.
Yeah, and I know you all have a lot of great like high level how-to type content on your blog. And that's just about DCI.com, right? If people want to check that out.
Yes, about DCI.com.
Like, I know I've seen a piece, I think, about kind of getting started with that influencer piece and a lot of what we're covering here.
Mhm.
Lots of good stuff there. So DCI partner shifting gears a little bit here. DCI partnered up with IEDC recently on a fellowship program. Can you tell us more about that? Like, what is it? Where is it at? How can people get involved if they're interested?
Yes. So, our president of the agency's economic development practice, Julie Curtin, is also an IEDC board member. And just to provide some context, as I mentioned before, we are a purpose driven agency. And so, we do have a value system that we operate on. And so, in 2021, we added a sixth value to our value system, which is championing equity and inclusion in our agency, across our client work, and in the place marketing industry. And so Julie took our DE&I efforts and our want to improve in this space back to IEDC and proposed starting the Equity and Economic Development Fellowship, where she now sits as the chair of the task force. So, the summer of 2022, the task force spearheaded the launch of an 8-week pilot program that placed 6 young people of color in EDOs around the US and Canada in an effort to introduce them to the important and purposeful work of economic development. And so the long-term objective for the fellowship program is to connect diverse young people with opportunities and hands-on experiences in the economic development space in order to develop their long-term interests and diversify the industry. And so at the end of the program, each fellow and their host EDO is able to attend the annual IEDC conference, which is typically held in the fall, and they're able to present their experiences and receive their program completion certificates. And so the first year, it was just a huge success. Both the fellows and the host EDOs were so empowered by this program, and other cities saw the success of it, that we are now launching into year 2, which is really exciting. And so the second cohort will kick off in June and end in August. And that group will then attend the IEDC annual conference this September in Dallas. And so I would say that for 2023, the application has already closed out in February, but I recommend for economic development organizations and chambers to be on the lookout for the 2024 application, which will be released this September.
Awesome. Yeah, I love what you're doing there. Feel like I've heard a lot about it, but wasn't sure like all the ins and outs of how that came about. So I thought that might be something our listeners would want to know more about. Any common misconceptions about place marketing in general that you feel like people tend to come in with?
I think that a lot of smaller cities and towns sometimes feel like they can't compete with larger cities to attract talent. But again, going back to the research, in our Talent Wars study, we found that about 48% of respondents reported they moved from one large urban area to another large city, and more than 50% of respondents reported moving from a large urban area to a smaller community. So it's about half and half, which means that I feel like there's a lid for every pot in terms of what types of communities talents are seeking.
Well, and I know some of our research has shown the biggest factors that really influence people in that way, and your all's research has shown similar things when I've looked at it, like, you know, proximity to family and like your people is huge.
Yes,
Climate,
definitely.
affordability, like, and those things really don't even have anything to do with community size. They have more to do with like your personal preferences or kind of how that works out for you personally. And as far as affordability, like smaller places are way more likely to have that than some of our bigger, wonderful cities, but they're just expensive to live in.
Exactly, exactly. And so that's what for any community that I'm having conversation with and they're hesitant or kind of feel like they can't compete, I'm just like, listen, there is someone out there searching for your community. We just need to raise the visibility so they can find you. And it's really about owning the size of your community, whether you are large or small, and then leaning into those unique lifestyle factors to help make you stand out from the competition.
So you are a New Yorker, right?
Yes, yes,
At the moment.
yes, yeah, I live here originally from Atlanta.
Okay, what part of the city do you live in?
I live in Harlem.
Okay, so our wrap up question always for our episodes is to have our guests talk a little bit about where they're currently based and like what some fun things are to do there if someone found themselves in the area that are a little bit off the beaten path, like not what the first thing you would find if you were researching it on your own. So something cool to do or like a really, really great restaurant. What would you throw out?
Ooh, that is a good question. I would say, I mean, honestly, for me, this is such a New York answer, but as a local, I love just being able to walk around the, my neighborhood of Harlem and just admire the beautiful architecture, being able to see people out and about enjoying, where they live. Also, too, I know that, when a lot of people come to New York, they're always hitting up Central Park and more of like the southern part of the park. But I would say if you're trying to avoid crowds, I recommend looking more into the northern part of Central Park because that's where you'll find more of the locals just, hanging out, having a good time, riding bikes. There's a nice trail system up here in the northern part of Central Park. There's like a creek and everything.
Yeah. So since you work on like all these cool campaigns, have you ever like done one or worked with a place that you were like, should I like move there? Because like I don't know that I have, but like I don't know, like the Florida thing you were talking about, I was kind of like, I mean, Florida has beaches and like,
It is definitely nice to daydream in that way. We actually have this quote that says, today's travelers, tomorrow's talent, because so many people are traveling all over the place, and a lot of people tend to find their next home, through those trips.
yeah, it's interesting because I would say too, yeah, one of the best parts about what I do is getting to visit some, sort of off, I don't want to say like off the beaten path, but like places that you might not go as a tourist
Hmm.
necessarily, just randomly on your own, and being able to see what the really cool parts of those places are is really neat to get to do. And sometimes I find myself asking that question too, like, would this be like better than where I'm living? Well, thank you so much, Samiria, for answering all of my questions. And I know that some of that marketing insight will be really helpful for our listeners. So thanks so much for spending some time.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. This was fun.
Thanks for listening to the Livability Podcast, where we take you inside America's best cities. At Livability, we highlight the unsung awesomeness of small and mid-sized cities across the country. We also partner with communities to reach their target companies and potential residents through digital content and print magazine programs. If you enjoyed this episode, please follow, rate, and review this show wherever you listen to podcasts. You can learn more about us at livabilitymedia.com. Have an idea for an upcoming episode? Email me at aellis@livability.com. Until next time, from Livability, I'm Amanda Ellis, sharing the stories of America's most promising places.